Good morning. My name is Kim Voss. I work for the United States Small Business Administration. The position I hold is Lender Relations Specialist, and I'm the moderator for this morning. We have decided that we'll go ahead and just let the panelists go ahead and introduce themselves, and we'll get moving. And I think we'll just sit.
It's on. Good morning. Y'all can do better than that. We're in West Texas. Good morning. Thank you. So my name's Carla James. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. Been a proud public servant for over 25 years, and that's about all I have to say. I've been to all kinds of agencies, but I'm pretty sure y'all don't care about that this morning, and we'll just dig in. You want to introduce everybody and get started?
No, everybody wants to introduce themselves.
But each person.
Yeah.
Good morning. I'm Debbie Green, and I'm a region manager for the Texas Department of Insurance Division of Workers' Compensation. My offices are the Lubbock office, where I primarily work from, Amarillo, Abilene, Midland, Odessa, and San Angelo. I have worked in numerous roles over the years, mostly in customer service roles, and I'm very excited to be able to share with you about workers' compensation today.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us here. My name is Gina Woodward. I'm with the Small Business Development Center in Amarillo at West Texas A&M University. A little bit about me. Our office is in Amarillo. We do have an office in Lubbock. They are lucky enough to be this week in D.C. at our national conference, so I'm lucky to be here with all of you. We work in Amarillo. I live in Canyon, so it's been interesting to see how different economic development and small business is between a town of getting up to 250,000, and then the Canyon's got about 30,000. It's very different. So it's been good to experience both of those. I've been with the SBDC for 10 years now. I'm the regional director over the Panhandle. We have 25 counties, 25,000 square miles, and 2 consultants to cover all of that. So we stay very, very busy. My background is in marketing and psychology. I originally went to school. I was going to pursue criminal justice and psychology, and I wanted to work for the feds and do all that cool stuff that you see on CSI. And I worked as a dispatcher on midnights for 4 years in college, and I decided that that was not for me. So I dropped the criminal justice, but I kept the psychology, frankly, just because I was almost finished with that. But then I fell in love with business and got a marketing degree and realized afterwards really how well those 2 degrees have worked together. So I'm really good at tricking people into doing what I want. It's worked very well for me. A little bit about the SBDC. So I get to work closely with Kim here. She's with our SBA office in Lubbock. There's an SBDC that's assigned to every single part of the U.S. As I mentioned, my office is assigned to the Panhandle, and then you have your Lubbock office here that's assigned to the South Plains. We get some funding from the SBA and then some funding from the state as well, which is why we're here and love to participate with the governor's office. But because we get that federal and state funding, the majority of what we are able to provide for you is free of charge. There's really 3 things that every SBDC does: consulting, training, and research. All of the consulting we do is provided one-on-one. You set up an appointment and we'll meet with you in our office. Sometimes we're even able to come to you. And that's where we get to sit down and discuss things very specific to you. Do you maybe need help with a business plan? Is there some licensing that you have questions about? It's stuff that's very specific to you and your business. And you're usually assigned a consultant, and that's the person that you'll work with for the duration of that business. So you get to know them very well. So that's consulting. The second thing that we do is training. Some of it is free of charge. We're really busy at our office today. We've got a sales tax workshop tonight. Those are free of charge, and they do those in Lubbock as well. We have an entrepreneurial law workshop that's going on in Amarillo right now. Most of us do QuickBooks. If you use QuickBooks, we do payroll. Most of us, I think, have kind of an introduction to business workshop if you're new to business, and those are usually either free of charge or maybe $20. But we always keep those low cost. And then the third thing that we do is research. We have access to a couple of different research departments. We can pull all kinds of neat stuff for you. I don't know if you've ever tried to pull any census data. There is some amazing research there, but you pretty much have to have a PhD in some kind of research degree to even be able to use that stuff. It's just mind-boggling. We have people that are actually trained to do that. So we can pull all kinds of really neat demographic information for you. And then they've also got subscriptions to databases that are they're not databases that you and I could afford on our own, and they're trained and know how to do those. And all of that research is provided to you free of charge. I think I've pretty well covered anything, and I don't want to take up too much time, so.
Thank you, Gina. I did want to piggyback on that. I wanted to piggyback on that. We also have other small business development centers around the area that SBA covers our district. We have 71 counties. We have all of our SBDCs, small business development centers, are wonderful resources for people who are trying to get started or open up their business or even to stay in business once they get up and running. We have one here in the Lubbock area. It's in the Science Spectrum building. I would encourage you to send your small business people over there for free and confidential counseling. A lot of times our small businesses do pay for their business plans, and our small business development centers offer all of their services for free. So it's really valuable for an individual who's trying to get started. I'll move on, and I'm going to ask Carla a couple of questions. Sure. Go ahead.
I passed on the mic too soon. I didn't get to talk enough. So just to let you know a little bit about the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation, we are the licensing entity for the state for occupational licenses, and we license 39 professions. That makes us moderately unpopular with about 800,000 licensees across the state, because not everyone's a fan of occupational licensing. But we're one of those state agencies that actually listens to what people have to say. I was fortunate enough to meet a gentleman this morning who had problems getting licensed, and that's not something I like to hear, so I'll be taking that home to ask my staff why that's occurring. And that's the kind of stuff that we need to hear from the folks that we license. Each state agency is required to do strategic planning once every 2 years, and we take a little bit of different slant on that than some of the other state agencies. We traveled out to 5 cities this year and had open forums to discuss what we're doing right, what we can do better, and what the future holds for businesses so that we can try to keep up with the business rather than chase you all. And through that process and an online survey, we received 8,000 comments. Those 8,000 comments are drilled down into buckets, and then we start talking about how to make changes with those. Some of those were easy fixes, you don't have the form that I need on the internet, and we'll put those out quickly. Some of the changes require some legislative modifications, and we take those as well, present that in our strategic plan that we give to the legislature, and the legislative body decides what they want to do with that. But we do listen, and it's very important to us that we do listen, because we're supposed to be your voice as well. So as part of that, what we try to do is make licensing easier. I'm surrounded by licensees at home. My husband is licensed by us, and both of my in-laws are licensed by us. So if there's a problem, you can bet I'm going to hear about it constantly. So we try to alleviate those problems because we don't want the phone calls. We don't want you having to contact us. That is not our purpose. We're not here to stand in your way. We're here to make sure that the professions that we licensed are licensed quickly, and you can use that license to go into whatever business or home that you're going into and say, we meet the requirements as set forth by law, and you can count on us to do a good job. That's not supposed to take a long time. That's not supposed to be in your way. We're supposed to get you licensed and let you do your business. If we're stopping someone from doing business, we're hurting the Texas economy. And as the governor has stated, we are top in that. We don't want to lose that ranking. So as part of us not standing in your way, lots of folks have to take tests to be licensed, and there are national tests and national certifications, and there's also the state levels. For our professions, most of them, if you are on a national level certified, that's good enough for us. And we're not going to make you send in a boatload of paperwork and take another test. That's not what we're supposed to do. We want to get you up and running and get you out on the street to do your job. We have a customer service group with about 50 people in it. To put that into perspective, they get about 2,000 calls a week and almost 1,000 emails a week. And we do that in multiple languages because we have multiple languages in this state. Houston is a very diverse population, and so we have opened up our ability to converse with folks to make sure that those businesses run effectively as well. We also take pride in the fact that we expedite licenses for veterans and spouses of veterans. They have served our country well. The last thing we need to do is slow them down from getting jobs. We take a lot of pride that we charge as little as possible. There are times, and I've worked at a state agency that charged licensing fees and deposited a bunch of money into the checkbook of the state of Texas at the end of the day. That's not how we work. In the last 10 years, we've lowered fees and kept money in the pockets of folks like you so that you're not paying those fees to the tune of $16 million. So that's money that could have gone into the state checkbook, but we decided to lower our fees so this stays in your pocket. There's no reason for us to charge more than we need to run the agency. Anything else I need to tell you? Let me see. I think our core values is what drives our agency. We have respect for our customers and ourselves. We have customer service for ourselves and you all, and not just our licensees, but people that have questions about our licensees. Integrity is a really big deal for me. As I said, I'm a proud public servant for over 25 years, and we take that very seriously at our agency. We know that we're stewards of the public trust, and we aim to keep that. Accountability as well. As I stated, we've lowered fees. That's a big deal for us. You will hear us tout it over and over again because that's money that we kept in your pocket so you could keep your business running or grow your business. And I'll close out with, we're working in conjunction with the legislature to lower fees and deregulate programs that don't need to be regulated. There are things that, this kind of stuns me, but hair braiding used to be licensed. I can't even fathom the reason for that. And so as part of the legislative process and through our strategic planning process, we went to the legislature and we said, this is weird. Why are we doing this? And they agreed. My boss, Brian Francis, the executive director of the agency, testified at a Senate hearing last week about this very same topic. And I think we're in the process over the last decade of the biggest deregulation of occupational licenses in the state of Texas. And we plan to carry that forward. I know there's a theory that Austin doesn't hear and doesn't care. That's not true for TDLR. We do hear you and we do care. So I'm going to be at my booth in a little while after this is done. Please come by if you have any questions or just want to visit. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Well, I wanted to share with you a little bit about the Division of Workers' Compensation and what we do. In Texas, we're kind of the Lone Ranger as we are the Lone Star State in the fact that Texas is the only state that does not require employers to carry workers' compensation. Now, it is required if you're a government entity or an educational institution, and some private entities that work with governmental institutions are required to carry workers' compensation. What you need to know is that when you carry workers' compensation, you have protection. You are shielded from the lawsuits filed by injured employees unless there is negligence that leads to a fatality. Some of the things that might be important to you are to timely file the notifications that there has been an injury that's resulted in more than 1 day of lost time off of work. Also, timely submit a notification if you do not carry workers' compensation coverage. Subscribers will have information that you need to share with your employees, such as both non-subscribers and subscribers must post notifications in a public place so that your employees know whether or not you have coverage. You also need to speak to your employees and let them know. They need to know this at the time of their hire. Now, what I wanted to share with you most of all is that prior to coming up here, I met a business owner. His name is Larry Villalobos. He's in construction. And what intrigued me about him is his passion for his industry and how he grew up in this organization, and then from there decided this is something that I can turn into a business. And you guys are the vision and the heartbeat of our community, but it's your employees that make it work. And so it's very critical that you do speak with them, that they know. I have many, many times talked with injured employees that don't know whether or not you have workers' compensation coverage. And if you do, they don't know if they have to see a doctor in the network or if they're in a non-network, which allows them to see a doctor of their choice. So it's very important that you talk with them and they know where they stand. Equally important is the fact that you have rights with the Division of Workers' Compensation. You have the right to know when there has been a claim filed. You also have the right to know the status of that claim, such as if there's a dispute on file, that maybe there's a concern with the way it happened, or perhaps whether or not this particular part that was injured, it was a part of the injury at the time of the incident. These things are important to you. Another thing that is important for you to know is that if you disagree that the injury occurred within the course and scope of employment, you can dispute that, and we can talk with you about that. Some other things that are important is returning people to work. If the doctor has said that the employee can return to work in some capacity, and you can accommodate that, this is in your best interest most of the time, because you have trained this employee to do a job. You have invested your time, your money in developing them. It takes about 1.5 years to build a new employee to the same level as the one that was injured. Now, that said, you want to have a safe work environment for your employees, so it's very important that you deal with any safety issues. Also, if you are a small business owner and you have 2 to 50 employees, and you've had 2 to 50 employees for an entire year prior to the injury, you can request reimbursement for accommodating the return of that employee to work. That is something that you apply for in advance, and then if that's accepted, then you can use those resources after you've incorporated the changes into your workplace. You can apply for those recovery charges up to a certain amount. So the main thing I want you to take away from this presentation is that you have a voice and you have action. I am with the Claims and Customer Services Department with the Division of Workers' Compensation. We work with all the parties related to the claim. We are the regulatory agency, so we strive to have unbiased opinions. And when you call with your questions, we want to help the best way we can. Now, your insurance carrier that you have purchased insurance with is your advocate if you go through the dispute process, but you are allowed to attend if you choose. And sometimes we have employers that want to provide testimony in contested case hearings about the incident regarding that particular situation. Be sure that if you do have questions, call us. What I hear oftentimes from employers is, I wish I had known. Well, let me give you the number to call. It's 800-252-7031. Our website is www.texas.gov. Your calls are very important to us, and as I mentioned, we work with all the parties. We talk with injured employees the most, but your questions are very important to us too. I will be at the table and at a booth with the Texas Department of Insurance. Please come by and visit us.
Okay, we're just about out of time. Is there anybody that would like to ask a question? And if so, I will come to you so that the whole room can hear. Are there any questions? Oh.
We got some time. I'm sure you want to be on the microphone.
Good morning. My question is for Kim Voss. I'm Polly with VTech Environmental Services here in Lubbock. The HUBZone program is very important to us, and the Obama administration pretty much wiped out all the HUBZone districts in Texas. So we want to understand how the HUBZone program is reinventing itself and what areas in Lubbock are considered HUBZone.
We do have what they call a HUBZone map. That is not something that I deal with. I mainly work with banks, but I can give you a contact information of Scotty Arnold and or Matthew Jock in our office. They handle all of the HUBZone issues, and they'd be happy to help you. And I can visit with you afterwards to give you all of their exact contact information. Sorry, I don't have that. Do we have any other questions?
We have a couple minutes, so please, if you have anything you'd like to ask the experts on our panel, please go ahead and get those questions. And if you don't want to talk on a microphone, you can catch them at the break as well.
I have a question for Carla. How do we determine what professions will be licensed?
That's a great question. So I had this question on a flight a couple of weeks ago, and the gentleman was really not very happy with me, and he said, "Why are you licensing this?" And my response was, the legislature drives our train. And so that body determines what will and will not be licensed. And we, of course, as I stated before, take recommendations that we get from our strategic planning process, recommendations from people all over the state that are licensed by us. We take that to the legislature and say, okay, here's what the general populace thinks, and you as a legislative body will make that determination, and then we will do what you tell us to do. So the licenses or the professions that we license are determined by the legislative body.
Thank you. And Debbie, I have a question for you. If I'm a small business owner, is there a program that I will be reimbursed for modifications to accommodate an injured employee's restrictions?
Yes, we do have a program. As I mentioned, if you have 2 to 50 employees, you can request reimbursement for modifications that you want to make to accommodate the restrictions of an injured employee to return to work. You must apply for those in advance and be accepted, then complete the modifications, and then submit the paperwork of those modifications after the fact to obtain reimbursement.
Thank you. And Carla, one more question for you. How do we figure out how much a license will cost a small business owner?
So as I stated earlier, we've lowered fees and kept money in y'all's pockets to the tune of $16 million. So what we do is we do a fee survey or fee analysis to determine the cost to run the program. So for instance, let's talk about electricians. And I say that specifically because my husband's an electrician. So what we look at is the cost to license, how many licenses do we get? What's the human cost to process those, any computer costs that we have? And what are our costs for any attorneys that we have on staff and inspectors that we have? And really, those are just salary costs. Our costs in our agency are about 90% salaries, that we keep a very low overhead. And then we determine, with simple math, what's that going to cost? And that's how we determine our fees. So we go through that annually to look at our fees, and based upon the population, and the work that we're doing and the work that we're seeing, that's how we determine fees.
Thank you. I know working for Small Business Administration, a lot of the small business owners are always asking about what's in it for me, what's it going to cost me, what about fees, this, that, and the other. I wanted Gina to also cover some of the costs that, or if there are any costs, with the Small Business Development Center.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? I think this one's
No.
super low. I have a 7-year-old. I'm pretty good at screaming, but it's a little bit early. At small business development centers, and this is going to be the same nationwide, all of the one-on-one consulting that we do, that's always going to be free of charge. Hopefully you've paid your taxes, and your tax dollars are actually going to support this. Those consultations, that's where we sit down with you one-on-one. I did one last week. I have a long-time client. She needed a budget. Her business is doing really well. She's never had a budget. It's very informal. We sat down at the conference table and turned on the TV and pulled up Excel, and we just spent a couple of hours putting a budget together for her. That didn't cost her a thing. We can do some consulting regarding government contracting. I know you've mentioned HUBZones. We can help with those registrations. The consulting for the registration is always going to be free of charge. If you have questions about, where is the HUBZone? What do I need to do to qualify? All of that stuff is free. The research that we do, that's never going to cost you anything. And keep in mind, those are some pretty costly databases that they're using, and these people have spent a lot of time being trained. Please, by all means, take advantage of that. And it's something you may not even need to come into the office for. Lots of the times we can do that through email. Really, the only thing you're ever going to have to pay for at an SBDC is training, and that's always optional. You don't even have to be a client to attend training. Like I said, we're doing that entrepreneurial law workshop. It's going on this morning in Amarillo. I think it was $99. It's a whole morning. You get to sit down with a bunch of different attorneys and pick their brains, and they teach you about legal structure, all kinds of things to watch out for. I think that's a steal for $99. Probably the most costly thing that anybody does with our offices is QuickBooks training. And that's just because there's some technology involved. We have to buy laptops because our training is actually hands-on. You get to sit down and go through QuickBooks. But even a lot of the training that we do is free, like the sales tax that we're doing tonight. The comptroller comes and teaches that. If you're new to taxes, they do these across the state. They're great. I would recommend bringing some coffee with you. It's not an exciting topic, but they do those free of charge, so it's a really good way to get started.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? I'd like to thank all the panelists. I think everybody did a great job. We appreciate all of your attention. Thank you.